Gay Hendrickson, thanks so much for joining us here on The Sydneyist. You're a professional museum curator and the president of the Friends of the Female Factory in Parramatta. Can you tell us just briefly why the building is so important?
Yes, so the Parramatta Female Factory was a world first in the kind of prison reform that occurred. It's a site that has had a history since 1821. It's the site of the first female workers' action in Australia as we know it, and it has international standing in the kind of area of that prison work. It was also the first of 13 female factory sites in Australia, or what was then the colony. And so it was a model for all the others. Now, when I talk about all the others, there are some remains at the Cascades Female Factory in Hobart,
Mm.
and there's remnants of archaeological remains. At the Parramatta Female Factory, we have two extant uh, buildings that were part of the original Greenway design, and we have another 1820s building. We have full yards. So the actual site itself and the place where these women were, you can go and experience now. So it is a telling of our women's story that isn't told, but is absolutely integral to every part of the Australian identity.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a prison for, but not for very long, for about 30 years or a bit less, is that right? Um,
Yes, but it was much more than a prison. So it was a place where it was called a factory because it was a factory. It was weaving and spinning thousands and thousands of yards of yarn. There was other work that went on. It was a barracks. It was the first women's health service in the country. So there was a hospital there, administration. It was a place where assignment occurred. So these women were assigned to the rest of the colony. So that's another aspect of why it is so important. It was a marriage bureau. So, think of
yeah,
marriage at first sight. It wasn't far different to that.
trying to find a
Um,
woman. Mm.
yeah, so it was a centre of so many different activities, and the site itself also has evidence of every colonial architect.
Yes, including James Barnett, I believe. Is that right? Who designed the tower?
Absolutely right. You're right. Yes.
A very pretty little tower it is too. So it was specifically for women who arrived in the colony with no job and no husband, convict women, obviously. And many of the friends, your group, the Friends of the Female Factory, are themselves descendants. Is that right?
Absolutely right. So
Something
the
like 6,000 women. I mean, it's an enormous number in that many years, but
enormous number of women, and you can add to that free women who then committed crimes in the colony,
mm,
and women who went to the hospital for laying in because it was a specialist female service. So it
okay.
crosses some boundaries as
Have
well.
your baby
But
in the prison. Yeah, good idea.
yeah, absolutely, along with diphtheria and typhus and other things like that. But it was the figure we don't know how many women went through because some of the colonial records were destroyed, but it's in excess of 5,000, absolutely.
Amazing.
And that's with the calculation, there's roughly 1 in 7 Australians related to these women.
That's pretty impressive.
Mm.
So let's talk then about, I mean, I know the building's been tentatively listed for World Heritage status from, I think, September 2023. Is that right?
Yes, look, as you know, since 2010, the Factory Friends have been fighting for National Heritage listing, but all along for World Heritage.
Mm.
And finally, in the last year and a half, there has been serious government application to World Heritage status.
Mm. And it's kind of ironic, though, isn't it? Because on the one hand, in July last year, we had the federal minister, Tanya Plibersek, proudly announcing this listing, tentative listing with UNESCO as World Heritage. And then just 3 months later, in December, we have, oh no, what is it, 5 months later, Paul Scully, the planning minister, announcing that the site would be rezoned for 30 stories. Seems
Yeah,
contradictory, doesn't it?
Like on one hand, I feel, yes, I feel a little bit like Jekyll and Hyde. On
Mm,
one hand, I really want to commend both state and federal government for their application for World Heritage and
mm.
conservation of the site. And on the other hand, I am absolutely disappointed that the state government's shooting themselves in the foot, really, by allowing uh, you know 20 plus stories within what we'd call the buffer zone. So there's a
Mm,
curtilage which is directly around the factory site and around what is known as the National Heritage Listing, which also includes the Girls Industrial School, Norma Parker Centre, that area as well.
mm,
So there's a curtilage, but beyond that is the buffer zone. And to achieve World Heritage, you have to have stability in the buffer zone that does not affect the World Heritage item, and
mm.
that is where the current application or development application is in. But this is one of we've had different things, different applications over the years, and this is the beginning, I think, of the next stage where you're looking at the north of the factory, where along O'Connell Street further is this is just the beginning. So what they do with this is an indication of what they'll do in the future,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it jeopardises World Heritage.
Set a precedent for everything, won't it? So
Exactly.
the current proposal is for the corner of Albert and O'Connell Streets, which is what, about 100 meters or something from the
Yes.
building?
So if you say you're standing on that site,
Mm.
Albert Street's a very short street which leads to a set of stairs, which are flanked by the actual quarry that the stone was taken from for the female factory.
Oh, is it right there?
And
Hmm.
yes, and then you walk over the road and you're in the female factory. So that's how close it is. If you're see some of the buildings on Fleet Street, which is the street the factory is on, are 4 stories.
Yeah,
Acceptable. The Friends aren't against development. What we're against is development that is not that is not sensitive to any of the heritage
yeah,
aspects. But if you're in a 10-story building, you've got a beautiful view of the factory, and the factory has a beautiful view of you.
yeah, and that's quite a different thing from 22 stories or 30 as
Yes,
the rezoning
yes.
allowed. Yes.
Yes, but even at
Um,
10 stories, there's going to be interference. But you're looking at what are the historic views, and for the historic views, the 20 stories is unacceptable. And as you and I both know, you can add at least 15% and any other application after that
yep.
of stories.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think this shows a disrespect for women's history? I mean, there's not a lot of memorialization, if that's a word, for women's history in Sydney, is there? And I think of Willow Grove, which, we were promised would
Yep.
be relocated, and it was much loved by so many women because it had been built by women and been used by women, it had been a maternity hospital, and now sits in a half a dozen sacks of rubble in some builder's shed. So
Look,
is this
it's sorry.
misogyny, do you think? No, I'm just wondering if there's any kind of, just not caring about women's history here.
Look, I think it's the same kind of disrespect as was happening when these women went through.
Mm.
When I did the National Touring Exhibition on female factories, there were 4 images on female factory women and less than 15 objects in national collections. It was like they didn't exist. And this
Yeah.
particular application is like it doesn't exist. It's currently the current state of play, you're looking at the fact that within the application by the developer for this corner of Albert and O'Connell Street, it does mention the what was the lunatic asylum. It mentions the psychiatric history. It makes no mention of female factory. It makes no
What?
mention of World Heritage. Yep,
Really?
that's in
That
that
is
application.
disgraceful.
Anyone can go into the planning application area, and that's what the 19 documents, and that's what they will find.
And that development application is currently sitting on the minister's desk. Is that where it is at the
That's
moment?
my understanding. It's active. It has been put in. It is being considered. It's under consideration.
Hmm.
But the documentation is not even acknowledging that there was a female factory. So that disrespect continues. It's like the on one hand, the state government is saying this is a really important history and we acknowledge it. And they have committed to it. They've conserved it. They've put money to it. They've got a wonderful application in for World Heritage. And then they're going, what's this?
Yeah.
No, we want to give, and the
No,
other
what we
part
need
of it
is
is,
more towers. Yeah.
yeah, and it's the other part too. It's disrespecting, in my view, the local community. So you're giving developers, a couple of developers, a great amount of money, risking a World Heritage status, which would be an absolute economic generator for the local community, the regional community. You know, imagine, I don't know, Port Arthur right in the
Yeah.
middle of the city.
Yeah.
So it's that giving it
That.
to individual or, you know, businesses,
Mm.
and risking what could be a fabulous thing for Australia and for the local community.
All right. Well, look, let's talk then about what you would like to happen. If you were in charge, what would you do with regard to this building?
Well, not just regard to this building, but definitely this building. I would insist on consideration of the sightlines. I would insist on the buffer zone being respected. So if you
How
basically
big is
take,
the buffer zone? Is that defined?
well, the buffer zone has not been identified by the government yet.
Yeah.
So the Factory Friends identified a modest buffer zone that goes to O'Connell Street.
Mm.
And if you put a pin in the middle of the female factory and then do a circle from O'Connell Street around all around the factory, that's what we're looking at as a buffer zone. So what should happen is a ruling by the government that says right along O'Connell Street and to the north of the factory from the other side of what is going to be the light rail, that there's a standard that is needed for the conservation of the heritage and the maintenance of World Heritage value.
So we basically need to take it seriously.
Yeah, absolutely take it seriously and not just deal with it case by case and fighting by community organisations. You know, we can do it. We've had 10,000 petitions to state government and another 11 to federal government for national heritage listing. We can do it, but why can it not just be one part of government talking to the other part of government who is very aware of the nature, the unique nature of the site, and saying there is a limit to the heights that respects the World Heritage value
Yeah.
of, you know, over 30 buildings that are heritage value within this
Yeah.
precinct.
Yeah. And within the proximity of that, you just have to treat them with respect. It seems reasonable, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And as a little add-on, there is at the moment, there is a budget bid in for a museum. So this is another fabulous thing that it will be a the government significant project, is a museum on site. So how fabulous
The
is that?
female factory as a museum, as a
Yeah,
cultural.
the whole precinct. So the female
Good
factory, the
idea.
girls' industrial school, fabulous idea,
In fact,
fabulous initiative.
maybe we could have
In
a
train.
museum of women's history,
Oh, yeah,
even.
fancy.
Imagine that. Yeah,
Imagine that.
that'd be fun.
Imagine that. So it is part of the World Heritage application is the institutional treatment of women.
Mm.
And we have, you know, a one-off lifetime opportunity to make this a fabulous beacon for the state and federal government with just some decent considered planning.
And something we could be proud of. So
Yes.
you had a couple of announcements to make, didn't you? They have a research institute.
Yes. So the Female Factory Friends have been going for 14 years, and we've been advocating for the National Heritage listing and the World Heritage listing and been successful with the national. We want to encourage a museum, so we're encouraging that, and we feel as part of our work that's encouraged the budget bid, but that we think that accessible research and information for the public is really important. So on Friday, which is our annual Riot Day event, we're also launching the research centre where people can come in and find out about their factory ancestors, or people who love heritage can find out about colonial life and find out about these women and find out about the site. So it's
Excellent.
an exciting initiative for
So we
us.
can all just
And
bowl up and have a look and have a chat and see things. Is that
you
how?
absolutely can,
Right.
and you can still go online and book tours. We have Hamish Maxwell Stewart, who's our keynote speaker for this year, who's looking at the unfree workers and the rebellious women, which will be fabulous. So you go online to book
Good.
that,
We like
but you can
rebellious
just
women.
walk through. I think there's a little of that in all of us, isn't there?
I'd like to think so.
Certainly you and me,
um,
I think.
that's a great moment to stop. But thank you so much, Gay, for joining us. Hello, city dwellers. Ever wondered what makes Sydney tick? Well, hold on to your skyscrapers because the Sydneyist is about to unravel the secrets of the concrete jungle like never before. Together, we'll explore this vibrant metropolis from its foundations to its penthouses. We're not just talking about bricks and mortar, we're talking the soul of Sydney. I'm Elizabeth Farrelly. Join me Thursdays at 6 p.m for the Sydneyist.